Welcome, class, to Lesson 7-5. Today, strong mathematicians can find equivalent fractions using division. Take out your notebook, your pencil, write down today's date, Lesson 7-5, and let's dive right in. As you talk about numerators and denominators, we'll be doing some things to those as well to find equivalent fractions. And we're going to get right into it. Here's one thing to remember. To simplify a fraction, this is a little bit different. We probably should have done this yesterday. To simplify a fraction, divide the numerator and the denominator by a fraction by the same number to make an equivalent fraction made from fewer but larger unit fractions. So what does that mean? Yesterday we're taking something small and making it bigger, more pieces. Today we're taking many pieces and making it into smaller pieces. So what does this show us right here? This shows us that in our notes, if we looked at 5/15, we can simplify and not have all these little pieces and make them into one giant third. So we take all those pieces and then we make it into a third. We have 6/18, so that's going to be lots of little pieces right here, but we're going to make it into 2/6. And then we also have 14/18, so we're going to go big, not even in the shaded part anymore. 14/18, holy cow, 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Here's our 14th one. And then would be the same as 7/9. And you kind of start to see that, can I see some connections between how do I go from 15/5 to 1/3? How can I go from 6/18 to 2/6? How do I go from 14/18 to 7/9? That would be excellent using division because that's the strategy we're learning about today. So how do we divide using the multiplication chart to go and see where we can simplify? Well, if we find where we see 20 and 40ths on the same line, because what we have to do here, we got 20 and we have 40ths, and we want to get to, here's 4/8. What does that mean? So 4/8 is our final. We saw 20 40ths, which means we're going to have to divide by 5. So 20 divided by 5 equals 4. 40 divided by 5 equals 8. Just like we did yesterday with multiplying by the same number, dividing is the same thing, but now we're making fewer pieces, but they're bigger in size. We're also looking for another 4/8, and we're going to find 36 70-seconds. So there's 36, there's 70 seconds. That's way too many little pieces. We can divide both of those numbers by 9 because they're both factors of 9, which gives us 4/8, which makes it a lot easier as we simplify. You might see that on Khan Academy. You might see that on some of your forward tests. To simplify the fraction, what does that mean? To get it to as small as you can. And really 4/8 we can even make smaller if we wanted to. We have 40 and 100, so we have 8/20. So if you see this one and you're not sure about the bottom one, well, I can definitely do the top one. I know 40 divided by 5 gives me 8. I also know 100 divided by 5 then would have to give me 20 because what we do for the numerator is the same thing we have to do to the denominator. Here we're going for 2/3, so here's my 2, here's my 3. I see 8/12 is where I'm going to, which means to get there I have to divide by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So you can pause the video right now, write down these examples. As you notice, whatever we do, whether we divide the numerator, it has to be the same number we're dividing the denominator by. So you can pause the video, write down these examples of equivalent fractions and how we simplified fractions to help you out. Here's some practice right now. Simplifying fractions. I don't have many n numbers because you can do sometimes more than one different way to simplify it. But our goal will try to be to simplify it as big as possible. So I look at 8, I look at 10, I think of what factors do they have in common? Well, I know they're both even numbers, so I know all even numbers can be divided by 2, which would give me 4/5. I know that 5 is a prime number. It can't be broken apart anymore, so 4/5 would be in its simplest form. We have 15 and 40. I see there's a 5 and a 0. That tells me that I got a pretty good indication that it probably can be divided by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 40 divided by 5 is 8. We have 3/8. I know I can't break down 3/8 any smaller than we currently have. We have 36 70-seconds. I think this was on the last screen. So I know if I put in 9 in here, because that was the same, 36 divided by 9 equals 4. 72 divided by 9 equals 8. But here's what I did talk about. Did I simplify? Yes, I simplified. But is this the simplest form? The answer would be no. I know that 4 and 8 can be even smaller. So I can divide these by the same number again. I'm going to divide them each by 4 again to get 1/2. Now this would be in the simplest form. So obviously that's what we try to shoot for, the simplest form, because you want as few pieces as big of pieces that you can. Now notice I have 30 100ths. I could divide these by 2 because they both end in a 0. I could divide them by 5, but then I would also probably have to do that again. So I'm going to go for the biggest number that I can think of, which would be 10. If you're not sure, you start by 2 and then try doing another number. And if it comes in, you'd be able to find the simplest form doing it that way. 6 and 12. What if I think of the number? I say, hey, what about 3? I put a 3 here and a 3 there. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Can I simplify that anymore? Why, I can, because if I divide this by 2 and this by 2, I would get an answer of 1/2, which would be in its simplest form. 24 and 36, we're going to divide those out. Let's see, look pretty big. 24, 36. I'm going to go with, I think, 6. 6 sounds like a pretty big number right now, so we'll throw a 6 in there. 24 divided by 6 is 4. 36 divided by 6 is 6, but I notice those numbers are still both even, so I can divide these both by 2 again, because even numbers can always be divided by 2, which means 2/3. So to simplify 24, 36 to its simplest form, it would be 2/3. So sometimes when you simplify, you're going to notice you might take more than one step to get to the simplest form, and that's perfectly okay. Because it's hard sometimes to figure out what is the biggest number that can go into numbers that seem pretty big to start with. So you can pause the video right now, write down these fractions and how we simplified them to their simplest form. And here's just a chain of events, how you got to kind of simplify and complete the chain of equivalent fractions. So it looks like some are going up, others are going down. So you notice 3/4 is equivalent to, well, 4 to get to 8, I would have to times this by 2, which means I have to take my 3 times 2 to give me a 6. And this 8 times 2 to get 16, which means 6 times 2 to get 12. So I've got 3/4, 6/8, and 12/16 are all equivalent fractions. I can go with another number. Can I even do fractions that are greater than 1 as equivalent fractions? Sure, why not? Nothing really changes because you still use that same strategy. In order to get, now I have 3 parts, I need to get the 4th part. How do I get from 3 to 6? I times it by 2, which means I take my 4 times 2 to get 8. And to get from 6 to 12, I have to times it by 2, which means I take my 8 times 2 and get 16/12, or just for good sake, because why would I like to do this, 1 and 4/12. Can we simplify that? You betcha. Which would also equal 1 and 1/3, because both the 4 and the 12 can be divided by 4. So now let's go the other way. We're going to simplify these equivalent fractions, but we're going to simplify. So 8 divided by what equals 4, and that would be 2, which means my 16 divided by 2 gives me 8. How do I go from 4 to 2? Using division. Well, 4 divided by 2 would equal 2. So that means 8 divided by 2 equals 4. We know 4 over 2 actually equals 2. And to be honest, all those numbers were actually 2 the whole way. They're all 2. And now another one. I know that when I start by dividing, I got to have something that's divisible so I can make it all the way down, because I notice right here, I'm going to have to divide 20 by 2 to get 10, and then 10 divided by 2 to get 5. So I have to find a number that I can divide twice by 5, or twice by 2 to get all the way down and have 2 equivalent fractions. So I'm going to go big. Let's see, can I use 18? Nope, I can't use 18 because 18 divided by 2 is 9, and 9 divided by 2 is 4 with a remainder of 1. That wouldn't give me a nice fraction because I can't have remainders in fractions. So I'm going to go with 16 because I know I can divide that by 2, as you see in the last problem, which should give me 8. And 8 divided by 2 would give me 4. So 16/20 is the same as 8/10 is the same as 4/5. So you can pause the video right now and write down all this information to help you record what equivalent fractions are using multiplication and also coming down with division. And right now it's box 3, now your turn. So you draw a big line on your piece of paper, right? Box 3, now your turn. Use the chart to figure out which ones, what do you need to divide 24/56 by to equal 3/7. What do you need 12/28 divided by to equal 3/7? What do you need 49/63 divided by to equal 7/9? And what do you need 30/54 divided by to equal 5/9? So write those down, fill in those division equations to make those simplifications work. Here's some practice simplifying the fractions. I give you a couple of different options up there. You can pause the video, simplify, and try to put them in their simplest form, which we know sometimes might take you more than one step. You might have to divide more than once, and that's perfectly fine. And complete each chain of reactions going from a big number to a small number and vice versa. So make sure, especially in the last one, you start high with your numerator to help you be able to solve it. I look forward to seeing all of your work in equivalent fractions and how you can simplify to the simplest form using division. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to write them down or share them out. If you have any strategies that you use, make sure you include those as well. And thanks again for another great lesson.